Yes, I
Okay.
can hear you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Okay,
Okay.
so good afternoon, everybody. And I'll be talking about estate planning, succession planning, exiting for lawyers and for law firms. Okay, can we go back to the beginning of the screen, the first slide? So I'll be looking at it with the what I call and that's how I like to look at things, the what, the why, the when, and the how. And that's for planning, it's a very good way to go. What, when, why, and how. I remember someone once said something about goal setting, and goal setting is also planning, that you have to know your what. And then when you have your one what, I never forgot it. When you have your one what, you ask yourself why. Why do you want to do what you are doing? And you must have maybe 2 or 3 whys you want to do it. And when you have your whys, then you should have your how do you want to do it. Your how to do what you want to do flows from your why you want to do it. And that flows from what you want to do. So what do you want to achieve? Why do you want to achieve it? And how do you want to achieve it? And that's the way I'm looking at succession and estate planning this afternoon briefly. So what is succession and exit planning? The plan to transit management and ownership of a law firm from one generation to the other, or from one set of owners to another set of owners. So it's not always someone has died and what's going to happen. Sometimes succession and exit planning is that one set of management is leaving for another set of management. So it's not always about dying. Sometimes you're exiting while you're alive and you're handing over to another person. And that's very good because when that happens, you're still alive to keep an eye on what is happening. But sometimes it's a plan for what happens when the founder or the managing partner dies, somebody who has run the firm for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15, for 20. I think I'm in a good place to speak about it because I'm in that kind of a law firm. My father, I worked with my dad. I worked with my dad, who passed on in 2017, and who had run the firm for close to 40 years. But death eventually always comes, no doubt. Some like him are lucky to be there till 85, and some go much earlier. But with what we had something like the first plan because in a way he had handed over. In fact, he had stopped coming to work like 5 years before he passed on, but he was still around. So that could be what we call exit while still alive and hand over to another. Or then what happens when the founder or the managing partner dies? Or sometimes a succession and exit plan is just a plan to shut down a law firm completely. I remember asking a very senior member of the profession, I said to her, Ma, what would have happened if you passed on and none of your children had studied law? She said, nothing. She said, that's the end. I said, wouldn't that worry you? She said, no. Why should that worry her? Her children don't have to do what she wants to do. The farm does not have to continue. So for some people, for a lot of us, we think, oh, it must continue for the next 500 years. It's not the plan for some people. Their plan is that it does not continue, and it's as simple as that. And for that, you need to make a plan. And we know of the very, very big farm, Danify Nyanko. His instruction was that the farm does not continue, but that needs even a very good plan. So again, let me reiterate, what is succession planning? Transiting from one management and ownership to another, sometimes at the same level, sometimes coming down to another generation, sometimes handing over while alive, and going on a long vacation, and from there to retirement. What happens? A plan for when the owner dies, or a plan to just shut down completely and go away and go and do something else. You may even just shut down your law firm completely I'm going to another business. You need to have a succession and exit plan. And the plan depends a lot on the size of the firm. But a big firm, of course, usually they have a good plan, they have planners, they have auditors, they have accountants. They have a lot of people who can work for them to put a succession and exit plan together. But a small firm needs it even more. And most of the firms in Nigeria fall into the category of small firms. Maybe we have a few firms with maybe 50 to 100. I don't know if we have anyone that has 100 members of staff, 100 lawyers, not even 100 partners. I mean, abroad we have firms with 2,000. So even our biggest law firm would be dwarfed by a mid-sized law firm in some other jurisdiction. So really, I mean, we're still basically small firms, maybe 10 partners, 20 partners, small firms. And so it's very important. But for the very small firms, what in the American Bar Association, they call them small and solo firms. Firms with about 5 lawyers or 5 partners, they're small firms. They really need succession and estate planning, because once the owner goes, the firm would really shake if there, and many times just dies, whether that was the plan or not, when there is no plan. Thank you. Next, so we go from what to why. Chidima, why? Yes. Why? Why do we need to have succession planning? One is to make sure that things are in order in case the unexpected happens. What is the unexpected? We all know the unexpected could be death. Many times we don't like to talk about it, but it happens and we can't avoid it. It's going to happen to everybody, the best of us, the worst of us. Eventually it's going to happen. Some will be old and retired, whether they like it or not. There's an age when you can't continue practicing. You know, 80 years, still good to go. I think we celebrated 90 for Pa Gomez, one of the very few, but at some point he would have had to stop. And he did stop. Death eventually stopped him too. God bless his soul. So why succession planning? To make sure things are in order in case the unexpected happens. But you see, the unexpected is not always there. There are other things as well, like accidents. You know, people these days, we're seeing a lot of things like people lose their memories, dementia, that they just can't continue. Those things are unexpected. Very serious, debilitating illnesses, unexpected. And there's no way, absolutely no way. And everything just, the person is sometimes there, but the person is not there. And you can't ask the person questions. The person can't remember anything, doesn't know anything about any clients anymore. Oh, how about Mrs. This? Really, I don't know who that is. It's very sad, but it's the unexpected. Like somebody says, life happens. And so you need to have a plan in case the unexpected happens. Because when the unexpected happens, you just can't go on and many things are just stuck. You want to have a plan to make sure that your clients' matters and their finances are always in order, if and when you live willingly or unwillingly. It's much easier when you are living willingly, when you're going on retirement, you have time. But when you're living unwillingly, it can be quite a mess. I mean, most of us lawyers we have different accounts, for example. We have the client account where clients' funds are. We have our own different accounts where the office funds are. Imagine you have a client account, you have funds, you've probably maybe just sold a house for a client. Maybe 250 million is sitting in your account from client A, another 30 million from client B, another 100 million from client C. All their monies are in the client account. You are the only signatory to the client account, and poof, off you go. What happens to them? Everybody is waiting for their money, and you are nowhere to be found because you've gone to the great beyond. or because you've suffered an attack of dementia. And these things can even be more dangerous than that when there's no plan, when nothing is happening. If it's dementia, you could have a fraudulent staff now making you sign. Dementia, from people who suffer dementia, some of them, they don't remember anything. So if a horrible fraudulent accountant comes and says, Papa, sign this check, and the man signs, and he's signing away clients' funds that are not his. When there's no plan, those things can easily happen. So the good name you've built for yourself over years, everything starts tumbling because there's no plan. Clients' accounts are there, clients' monies are there, the clients want their money, and then when a man is dead, it's even worse. Because before you start doing letters of administration, you're trying to change accounts, the owners of the monies are calling, and then they start saying, oh, this man, maybe he even stole our money, all kinds of things that should not be said about you, then they're saying it. So it's so important that there is a plan, that if anything happens, things can go on seamlessly, as if you were still there even when you are not there, and things are just going on seamlessly. So that is why it's important. Now, why else do you have to have a plan? To allow you to make a plan for retirement, to do other things. This generation, I don't think we want to just work forever. People like my father were happy to come to work till he was 85 or till he was 80 something. He stopped coming, like I said, a few years before he passed on. But I don't think we want to come to work forever. We want to stop at some point and be able to take a break, relax, do something else, go on a holiday, a long holiday. I want to go on a holiday for 3 months, travel the world, go on a long cruise, and don't have to worry about what is happening in the office. I want to know that things are going on. I want to know money is being paid into my account, the clients are being taken care of. I'm retired. That's the meaning of retirement. Retirement doesn't mean I will never work again, but retirement means I'll pick and choose what I do. Maybe I'll come in occasionally. I know what's happening there. We have something for you. And I'll be getting checks, and I'll be having a good time traveling, doing foundation work, doing charity work, but I'll be free to do other things. And I don't have to worry about the office. That's what making a good plan does. That's why you have to have a plan. Except if you plan to work till maybe 100, then you can just keep working. But then, like I said, other things will stop you. If you want to continue like that, there are things that can say, no, you go sit down. So that's why. So make sure things are in order in case the unexpected happens. To make sure your clients matters, and especially their finances are always in order if you leave willingly or unwillingly. And to allow you make a plan for retirement so that you can do other things. That's why it's important to have a succession plan. Thank you. Next slide. I know I was supposed to speak for 15 minutes, but I'm sure. Chidinma, can I go on? Chidinma?
Yes, okay. You can. Yes, you can. Yes.
Okay, so next one. Okay. When succession planning? Just 4 things. Start early, start late, start with an end in mind, start now. What do I mean? For those who are just starting their law firm, it's good to start early, to start thinking that where is this going to? Am I starting this law firm? Some people just want to start a law firm, do it for maybe 20 years and get out completely and shut down. Some want to start something that will go way beyond them. But when you are starting, have an end in mind. This is where I'm going. So that from the beginning, when you start early, you either start with a group of people. And I see that happening a lot now. A lot of young people are starting law firms as a group so that it's all not resting on one man's head. Everything rests on one man's head. Everything just rests on one man's head. Everything just rests on one person's head. These days, I see 4 people, 5 people, they start a firm. So responsibilities are shared, profits are shared, losses are shared, stresses are shared, headaches are shared. And from the beginning, you know who is doing what. And if I have to go, this person is going to come in to take my place. That's starting early. When? You can start late. So if you are listening and you are already 60 and you're thinking, oh my God, it's never too late to start. It's also a good time to start. To start late is a good time, better than not starting at all. So even at 60, at 70, you can start thinking, you know, I haven't really thought about it. What will happen if I should just not wake up tomorrow? What will happen to the clients? What will happen to the money? What will happen to the money in the bank? How will my staff be paid? You know, another reason why you should even think of succession planning is because of your faithful staff, people who have worked with you, people who have been living because you are working, the chambers is making money, you're paying them salaries. The thing you should be thinking, if I don't wake up tomorrow morning, what happens even to their June salary? What happens in July? What happens in August? They are not planning to die with you. So at any age, start now. Start with an end in mind. Think about it. Even as I speak, think about it. Whether you are 1 year in your law firm practice or you are 20 years in your law firm practice, God forbid if you don't wake up tomorrow, what happens to everything? Is there a plan? Does anybody know where Mrs. Ojo's money is? Who is going to pay the staff for this month of June? Where is all the money in your account? Even if it's for your children, who can access it? If the clients come in and they're asking for their files, who knows where it is? Who knows what is going on? Sometimes a firm is just a one-man show completely. And when the person just dies suddenly, everything is just scattered. And people die suddenly. I know somebody who died suddenly at 80. You know, fortunately, there was a daughter to try and start putting things together, but it was still very unexpected. But there must be a plan. So start early, start late, start with an end in mind. What is the end you have in mind? Is the end you have in mind that the law firm should continue? Or is the end you have in mind is that the law firm should close down? There's not one that is a bad idea. It just depends on the individual. We're individuals and we're entitled to do whatever we want to do with our firm. We have the right to close it down completely. I want it to be closed down. I don't want that name to continue as a law firm. Or I want it to continue like this. Some would even say, I want it to continue in a partnership. I want it to metamorphose. Maybe from Shola Dijola and Co to Hallelujah Chambers if you wanted, and then move into a group. Some people have transited from a one-man firm to a group. I know a few top law firms. I know someone, she had her own law firm, and then she transited from being a one-man law firm and moved into a bigger group. That was the plan. But there must be a plan. And so in the bigger group, they have retirement ages because it's a much bigger group. And so one person would retire, another person would be promoted up as partner, and it goes on and on and on. So when you have an end in mind, you might say, my plan is that in the next 1 year, I'm going to leave this one-man thing I'm doing, and I'm going to merge with a few friends, and we're going to start a bigger practice. That's the end in mind. Or my plan is that I'm going to shut down in so time. So let me start working towards it. So when do you start succession planning? Now. Start early, start late, start with an end in mind, but start now. If you have never thought about it, go back home and start thinking about succession planning and exit planning. Nobody's going to live forever, and we don't even want to work forever. I don't want to work forever. I want to be able to just go on a long holiday, like I said, coming from time to time, do charity work, go and work for the church, just do whatever I want. So that's why when. So last slide, how? Now how? That's the real thing. And these are just a few tips, because how is much more than this, but these are a few tips on the how. You need to know your, like I said, your why. You need to know the what. You need to know your why before you come to your how. Because how you will do it, how I will do it will differ from how you will do it. How a man who wants to move from his one-man law firm to a bigger law firm, his how is different from the how of a person who wants to shut down. And it's different from the how of a person who wants to maintain that small law firm, but bring in more people into that law firm. Keep the name of that law firm going on, maybe long after he or she has gone. The hows are different. So your how is determined by your why and your what. But these are a few hows that would apply to anyone, whether you want to shut down or you want to move into a bigger group, or you just want to grow your own one-man law firm and begin to groom other people. These are what I would just call tips that would apply to most of the whys. Number one. Hello? Hello? Chidima? Hello? Chidima? Hello? I think I'm left alone here. Let me see if I'm allowed to share this. Can anybody still hear me? Okay, Chidima, but I can't see the slides anymore. Thank you. Abimbola Shinobi, thank you. Chidima, thank you. But I can't see the last slide anymore. The last slide has disappeared from the screen. And if you have any questions, please put it on the chat. Put them in the chat box. Even though the second panelist is here, so I'm sure they'll be shooing me off very soon. But Chidima, if I can't see the last screen, I don't know if you can allow me to share screen. Let me see, share screen. Okay. I think I can do it myself. Please say yes if you can see my screen. I'm sharing the screen myself now. Please just say yes if you can see the screen that I'm sharing. Can somebody just, okay. If you can see, yes, okay, thank you. You can see, yes, thank you very much, Marianne. Abimbola Abayomi, Stewese, thank you very much, thank you. Okay, so, yes, so how, that's the last screen. One, have a written plan that you will share with someone. Have a written plan. It's important, and the written plan should be accessible in case of death or incapacity. Have something written, something that talks about what you intended, where this is, where that is, a good written plan. And you can share it with someone that can easily bring it out in case the unexpected happens and you're not able to do that yourself. This is different from a will. This is just a good written plan. And like I said earlier, your plan will depend on the what and the why. So if your plan is for the firm to continue after death or retirement, then you have to identify the next legs. What do I mean by next legs? I'm sure you've all watched a relay race and you hand your baton to the next leg. And that's what I mean by a next leg. You have to have identified your next leg. You may think you are young, but in 10 years' time, there'll be another group of people who came in after you, who are 10 years younger, coming in. So identify your next legs and begin to prepare your next legs. Let them know their position. There are people who work with you, start looking at them and start identifying them. Sometimes for many people, the next leg before, maybe the generation of my dad, the next leg was always the daughter or the son or the children. So you have law firms where all the children are lawyers, and so the firm is just daddy and his daughters and his sons. Maybe something like me, it was daddy and daughter. But this generation, you can't assume that the children will be the next legs. The children have plans of their own. So you need to identify next legs. I went to a law firm one day to see the partner, and he was saying, I'm so sad. I said, why? He said, because I've built this lovely 3-story building, and none of my children want to even work with me or even read law. What am I going to do? I said, you have to identify a new next legs. Prepare them and let them know their position. Employ people with the heart that they are going to work with you for a long time. You have to develop that culture too of making people want to work with you for a long time. Pay them well, train them, let them want to stay with you. Give them responsibility, give them management responsibility. Let them know that they have a stake in your chambers. That is the way to prepare a next leg. Get them involved in management. I have someone who's been with me for 15 years. There's nothing to hide from her. In fact, she's a signatory to one of the accounts. That is preparing people as next legs. Let them know that this is what I have in mind. Talk about it. Then have a written list of client information and their matters. You have to always, at every point, you are always sure you know who your clients are, you know about all their matters, and it is written. The Bible says, write the vision and make it plain, that all who read it may run with it. So have a written list of all clients, their information, their matters, their addresses, everything. Have a written list of all client funds in your client's account separately. Have a list of financial information, your accounts, your property, your passwords. These things should be written. Because if you go, nobody's going to come and wake you up to get this information from you. And this is critical information. They need to run the firm. Consider having a co-signatory to at least one account to start with, and expand that as you go along, so that if you at least have a co-signatory to one account, if anything happens, somebody can sign off. And you don't know the day that may save you, because sometimes what will happen is not even death. It could be an emergency, and they need an emergency fund to save your life. And there'll be millions sitting in the account, and nobody can touch it to save you. If you have a co-signatory, somebody will be able to immediately sign off, even for your treatment. Those things are just little tips on how to prepare for succession planning. I will stop here because I can see that the other person is here, and I've gone on for much longer, but I hope you've taken on board a few of these tips that I've spoken about. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I don't know whether Chidima will want me to answer before or after the next speaker comes on. And so Chidima, that's where I'll stop, and I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much for inviting me. This is a topic that I'm passionate about.
Okay, there are some questions, but Miss Michelle is yet to join us.
Chidima, over to you.
Issues. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, I said Michelle is yet to join us because she's having issues with joining.
Oh, she actually came in briefly.
Maybe she did. She didn't join us. We've been talking to her over the phone.
I saw her.
And okay.
Maybe she joined and fell off again, fell off the network. Well, let's just have a few questions and answers.
Let's just have, yes, while we're waiting, and then if she's yet to join us, we'll just round up.
Or maybe a few contributions.
But there are 4 questions here, though, from some attendees. So it says, are there any regulatory laws that should be borne in mind when making a business succession plan? Did you get the question, ma'am? Okay.
Yes. I mean, the regulatory, it's not like the NBA has a regulatory law for law firms transitioning. But I would think would have to bear in mind, especially tax laws, because I mean, taxes have to be paid and they have to be done properly. And the fact that the firm is transitioning doesn't excuse all those things. There are many taxes that we're always paying, property taxes, LIRS, VAT, payee, all those things have to be borne in mind because it has to continue even as the firm is transitioning. The firm is still supposed to be doing so many things, and these things have to be borne in mind. So that is one very, very important thing, the issue of taxes.
Okay. Then the second question is if the business is passed on as planned, but after a while the successor deviates from the set out values and goals of the business, can any sanction be applied for the breach?
It depends. Well, one, that is if the person who passed on the business is still alive. That's number one, because the person would be alive to have to say that's not what we planned. And then, of course, if the person is still alive and there's a contract, then of course there would be a breach if there is a contract, if the person, and that's why I said it's always nice to do the transition while the person is alive and the person can exercise some control. For some people, the plan could be that I pass it on, but I still have control. I could be the chairman of the law firm, or I would have a controlling stake in the firm, even though I'm not doing a day-to-day business in the firm. So when you have that type of firm, oh yes, a lot of things can be done. If you had a contract, then you could take it up as a breach if there was a breach in the contract. If you are still having some control, then you can rein in the people who are doing the wrong things, pull them in and say, no, that's not it. You come back from a long holiday and you see that they're doing something completely different because you still have a controlling stake, depending on how the transition is done, depending on the new structure, yes, the new structure of the firm, you should be able to say, no, that's not it, out you go. You can actually say out you go to someone, depending on how you've structured the new firm, because the new firm is different from the old firm. The old firm has transitioned or metamorphosed into something new with a new structure. But all this is possible when the person who started is still alive. And that's why it's always good to start planning and doing the transition while the first person is still there to manage the transition and see that the new firm has taken good roots and is growing well. Transiting is like replanting, and you want to see that this thing I've replanted. Sometimes you replant something and it dies. So you want to replant and make sure it lives well. So yes, you can rein in the person, you can do a lot of things about it, but usually when...
Okay, thank you. Then the other question is if what happens then, or what law would apply if they are unable to reach agreement as to succession plan that suits all of them?
Well, of course, I mean, there is the contract. The fact that they're together, they're in a partnership. Usually when you have problems with such partnership, you have options. You can go to mediation, you can go to arbitration, you can go to litigation, to court. The best alternative for me is always mediation, because they came together one day as partners and sat down together, and something happened and they're having issues. I always recommend mediation. Partners can sit down with a third party who is a mediator and help them to walk through the problems, or with a coach. But of course, when if all is lost and nothing can happen, then they have to go to court.
Okay. So I think Mrs. Shola has left. She just left us now. But thankfully, she was able to round up her session, her presentation. We were meant to have Miss Michelle Chikezie from JLS on this webinar, but she's having issues with logging in, but I'm hoping Mrs. Shola has been able to handle the vital parts of the topic. And if you have, if you're in need of these her slides that she prepared, just let me know. But if not, I think at this point we will have to end the webinar for today.